What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Gridiron. Today we're breaking down Chiefs Ravens, first game of the season, and everything that came with it. And we'll be highlighting 3 games we think will be the best games this weekend here on the Gridiron. Welcome back to the Gridiron, everyone. I'm here with T in his inaugural episode. Welcome.
What's going on, fellas?
And back with Julian, everyone's favorite Friday night review and preview analyst. So we gotta address the elephant in the room. Chiefs Ravens, first game of the season. A lot of question marks on both sides, and a lot of third party involvement. If you see my name that way, that way. And I know someone who has quite a lot to say on the subject, so I'm going to throw it to Julian to start us off here.
Well, I've taken a little bit of time to kind of get over last night. Not really. First of all, the illegal formations, we're not even going to talk about that. I saw them throughout the preseason, the referees calling the illegal formations. So, it was nothing new. I'm sure, you guys saw throughout the preseason, your team had maybe a penalty or two from the tackle position on that side. What I do want to talk about is I'm very disappointed with Lamar Jackson. This year in to year out progression of Lamar, getting to the playoffs, having some playoff, presence was great for the last couple of years. And last year we saw what happened with the Chiefs. And this was the same for this Chiefs game yesterday. I'm not even going to lie. Lamar, I get it. He's an improvising quarterback. He's great with his legs. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to the crunch time, everybody's going to talk about, the throw to Zay Flowers. And I guess Lamar said in his interview that he was throwing it to Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman was nowhere in that area. Whatever, we're not going to talk about it. Last 5 seconds of the game, you're trying to get your feet set. You're trying to throw a dot, in which he did. But you were watching him. He was already trying to escape the pocket, try to buy time, and the pocket wasn't collapsing yet. Yes, they do have a few issues with that interior offensive line, but come on, guys. He's not even looking like he wants to get set in the pocket. He just wants to take off. And that's putting a lot of, strain on the offensive line, especially the tackle position. I'm very disappointed with last night. Congratulations to Taylor Swift and the Swifties, but I'm exactly that's how I felt last night at the end of that game. Very disappointed, extremely disappointed.
Yeah, it does bring up a lot of question marks, and Lamar is still not beating the anti-clutch accusations here with yet another miss in crunch time after a beautiful 2-minute drill with one timeout. He was doing everything you wanted to do. Yes, he had to use his legs a lot because of the offensive line and Chris Jones wreaking havoc. But at the end of the day, you're getting paid all this money. You're a 2-time MVP. You got to make those throws, and that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. T, what do you got for us on the recap for Chiefs Ravens?
For starters, everything you mentioned about the refs, they had to do a complete 180 from last year. The start of last year, Kadarius Toney 2 plays in a row got called for the illegal formation. And so this was their way of saying, you know what, I guess we got to make amends here. We're going to completely overlook the 6 times that the Chiefs were victim of the very thing that they had accused Baltimore of. Because when you look at their tackles, at one point it used to just be, do you have the 5 linemen lined up across the line? Not flat across the line, but the center's always going to be the furthest up because he's the one snapping the ball. But at some point, you just have to say either you're going to call it around the clock or you're not. And if you're not going to be consistent, then the game does start to get lopsided, and that becomes frustrating just as a fan, someone that doesn't have a hat, like a person that I'm rooting for, being not a Chiefs or Ravens fan, just wanting to watch a great opening season game, a rematch of the AFC Championship, and essentially having that blown by the refs' inability to do their job. And for some reason, I will always be frustrated that the players have to respond when they screw up at the end of the game. Lamar had to respond for missing 2 wide open passes. but the refs are never anywhere to be found. They get to go to some quick little inside secret society portal that's opened on Twitter for about 20 minutes, answer a few questions, and they leave. That'll forever frustrate me as a fan. If the players are expected to respond for their errors, the refs need to do that as well. The refs need to be fined, suspended as well. That's for starters. I agree with everything Julian said, though. I think that this was Lamar's game to lose, and he flat out blew it. As stellar as he looked, the worst thing that they could have done was go out and get Derrick Henry. I fully expected the Cowboys, who are in dire need of a running back, to go out and get a big power back in Derrick Henry. Not try to relive 2016 by getting a past their prime Zeke Elliott and Dalvin Cook. So when they went out and got a running back, I said, he's going to be the second best runner at best on his team. Lamar will finish the year with 1,000 yards rushing, not Derrick Henry. Nobody ever questioned whether the Ravens had an inept ability to run the ball. They don't have receivers that can create space. When your number one receiver is shorter than the average defensive back, okay, you need to go out and get a big body receiver. You need to go out and get somebody that can actually create space, that can get past the defender, that can find the space in open field and make plays. And it shouldn't have to be an Isaiah Likely, who likely just took over as the new tight end one. Mark Andrews couldn't get open. He couldn't create space, and ultimately he couldn't get a target till the second half. So Isaiah Likely's likely going to be getting a lot more snaps and reps, but ultimately, I think that getting Derrick Henry was very counterintuitive. It worked against their ultimate goal. Rushing the ball was never their problem. As long as they have receivers that can't create space, they're going to continue to shoot themselves in the foot. This was their one chance to prove that the AFC Championship was last year. We are going to come out the gate. We're going to come hard. We're going to do whatever we got to do to knock them off their feet, because the statistic of the last 22 seasons, 20 of the 22 teams that run the Super Bowl, the following season, they lose the season opener, i.e. Kansas City Chiefs last year. And you fully expected that this year, but it didn't happen. So my hat's off still to the Chiefs for somehow making it happen, for somehow still pulling away late in the game. Xavier Worthy, my goodness, I feel like the Bills should be exiled from the league for allowing the Chiefs to move ahead of them to draft him in the first place. You give Pat Mahomes the now fastest receiver, i.e. a baby Tyreek Hill, and then you act surprised that he did what he did and that he made a seasoned veteran and Marlon Humphrey look like a shell of himself. So I think that this is still the Chiefs. I think it's going to go through Arrowhead, the AFC Championship, the road to the Super Bowl, and the Ravens have themselves to thank for that.
Yeah, and before you jump back on, Gage, just to pivot a little bit, for a preview for Ravens fans, every time we are going by the script, just like the Tennessee Titans, every time they seem like they're a little bit out of that game, Derrick Henry is going to be without his helmet, and you're going to see Hill in that game, Hill and whoever else got in on the depth chart. It really is disgusting that, you go ahead and get a power runner, and most of the game, you're going to have a running back like Hill in there, 3 downs sometimes when they're down by, a touchdown. So that frustrates me even more on that sense.
Yeah, I agree with that point to a T. Derrick Henry proved last year that he can catch a ball out of the backfield. You don't need Justice Hill in there 3 downs because you're down a touchdown. You're not playing from an absorbent down, yet you can still wear on them with Derrick Henry and open things for Lamar Jackson, which I think was their whole point of getting Derrick Henry. Different style of running. Wear him down. Then Lamar pulls it and runs for 40. And that's what they envisioned, and it worked perfectly the first drive. That should have been every Ravens drive subsequent. But they got down, and it got close, and then we have to throw the ball almost every play. No, you don't. I just didn't agree with that game plan. But yes, their offensive line needs to come together. Lamar can't be running for his life like that. It's just not conducive to how they want to play the game. It's not conducive to how Lamar Jackson wants to play his game. He can do it. It's just not how he wants to play it. I will say it's going to go through Arrowhead again, as long as we're all NFL fans ready to see that happen once more, because Andy Reid is still by far the best offensive schemer in the NFL. It's not close. Best head coach, best quarterback, and now the fastest wide receiver outside the numbers, which you have the quarterback to do it. Patrick Mahomes has the biggest arm in the NFL. So maybe Josh Allen's the only one that can come close, but match that with speed. You can't say the Chiefs don't have speed anymore. And their defense, even without Jarius Sneed, looked like they came to play. They covered up a subpar receiver core, but hey, you play the guys across from you. That's all you can do week to week. Play guys across from you. And only thing I like to disagree with, I think Zay Flowers is a great receiver. Can he be a full-out number one? Probably not. Probably not. He can be 1B for sure. Great speed, great hands, great route running. Just small. Not what you really want in your number one option. So now that we have our Chiefs-Ravens griping out of the way, let's go to AFC South battle. Potentially the top two teams in the AFC South, depending on health, being the Texans and the Colts. And this could shape up to be a battle for years to come between AR-15 and CJ Stroud. And if AR-15 stays healthy throughout the season, plays more than 4 games, this could very well be who makes the playoffs right here. And it's going to be a great preview week 1. T, what do you think about bringing out week 1 Texans Colts?
I am looking forward to AR-15 for everything you just aforementioned. I had them last year winning the division. And to say that the AFC South winner came down to the final game of the season between the Colts and the Texans with the Gardner Minshew. If you made it that far with him, you surely it's not even going to be close if you had Anthony Richardson in there, somebody that actually can be calm and poised, somebody in their first year. I think this past year we had a few quarterbacks that actually shook up some trees, and I wasn't expecting that. You never really expect rookies to come in and dominate at such an elite level, not that quick, not that early on. And for CJ Stroud to do that, even after Tank Dell goes out, even after his running back misses like 5 or 6 games, to still put the pieces together to create a team that then cultivated a type of relationship with his young coach and D'Amico Ryan to where they make a good playoff push. I said the only team that could have stopped them from doing that would have been the Colts. And so you now have an Anthony Richardson, hopefully healthy, a Jonathan Taylor, hopefully healthy, right? You got a Michael Pittman. I personally feel that Adonai Mitchell, well, by week 10, he will likely be their wide receiver 1. What I've been seeing in their camps, what I've been seeing as just not just a crisp route runner, but a guy that owns up to his mistakes, a guy that goes over to the sideline and keeps his helmet on. He stays intact. He follows his coaches around. Him and Anthony Richardson have always been locked in, even though they didn't see, they saw limited playing time. I see a quarterback receiver duo like a Donovan McNabb, Terrell Owens type, where if you can actually keep it intact, like Andy Reid was able to do with Philly, that the sky's the limit. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I do, however, still have the Texans winning this. I do feel that the addition of Joe Mixon and Stephon Diggs will be like they won't have the growing pains that people might think. So I do have the Texans winning a nice battle. I think it's going to be a shootout, even with the Texans loading up on defense and going out and getting Danielle Hunter and a few other pieces. I do still feel it's going to be like a 31-27 type game, just because both offenses are just got this massive firepower. So I'm looking forward to the match, but ultimately I think the Texans pull away late in the game. But I would not be surprised if the Colts take it.
I also have the Texans here for exactly what you said. The offenses are crazy firepower on both sides, both good offensive lines, and both good young quarterbacks that can create plays with their legs if needed and just can disrupt games. You game plan around both these quarterbacks. Texans, Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, added all these parts on defense. They're going to be a very tough out. They all have playoff experience now. D'Amico Ryans has playoff experience as a coach now. Very comfortable in year 2 as a head coach. So it could be a lot of either boom or bust in Houston because there's a lot of year 2 growing pains. But if you continue the method, the sky's the limit, truly. You could look at them potentially matched up against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, depending on how it goes. And it's going to be a very tough division this year. It's going to be very exciting for fans of all those teams, besides Tennessee, and how it goes. So, Julian, what do you think? I also just throw out my prediction. I think it's going to be high scoring as well. I'm going to go 35-31, up edge a little bit over T. I have Texans. It's for week 1, defenses aren't really locked in yet. I think offenses have that a little advantage week 1. Julian, what do you?
You're saying real quick? You're saying I should take the over 59.5?
You should take the over 59.
I'm holding you to it.
In the past,
we're all about the sports betting out here. I've been making them.
Yes. In the past, guys, I would say, don't take that over, because it's a divisional game. But this year, I'm going to tell you guys, the depth that they have with those receivers. Yes, you have Tank Dell. Yes, you have Stephon Diggs. Yes, you have Nico Collins, who is turning into a glorified one. Okay? You have Mechie, who you got a couple of years ago, who looked like he was kind of shining. He just came back from leukemia, by the way. I mean, congrats to him. And he looked like he was kind of finding a role in that offense, too. You're throwing out a pass-catching running back like Devin Singletary, but Joe Mixon is just fine. That Colts defense, besides Kenny Moore, Abramson, I don't think they're going to be able to hold up against the Texans. I mean, look, hold on. Darius Leonard, I think, went to the Eagles, right? Or maybe I'm little. Doesn't even
Darius
matter.
Leonard, I think Darius Leonard's gone, but DeForest Buckner is a beast.
DeForest Buckner is great up front. I don't know if that secondary is going to be able to hold against everything they have. I mean, come on. I mean, this is just like now. Again, we've seen this in the past. We're trying to gel Stephon Diggs, who's practically a one, into an offense that's already loaded. I could see it going a little bit slow to start the game, but once they start getting out running, they're going to blow the gates right off that thing.
Thanks for fact checking me, Julian. Darius Leonard is on the Eagles.
I just remember because he played really bad on the Eagles last year. Could not hit his run gaps. Missed his run gaps, missed his assignments. Not the same tackler. DeForest Buckner is great, but who else do they really have? Kenny Moore.
Yeah. It's.
Sorry, Colts.
I was talking to someone earlier, and they said it, which is very, very accurate. The Colts are a secondary away from being a very, very good team.
Yes, they are.
And truer words, especially in that division that have very deep at wide receiver. It's going to be a test week in week trying to win that division.
Even the Jags, Thomas and sorry about that. I mean,
Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., Christian Kirk.
It feels like every team in that division is pretty stacked. Even your favorite, the Tennessee Titans. I mean, you still got Burks and we'll see if DeAndre Hopkins,
Calvin Ridley,
and Calvin Ridley. I mean, a very skilled team. You got dual backs with two-tap Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. So you know what?
They got Tyler Boyd too from Cincy.
Tyler Boyd, yep. Very solid, 2-3.
Argument that all four teams have a great receiver room. Better than a lot of teams in the NFL.
And so to your point, if you don't have the secondary that can match, if you don't have a solid secondary, not just people think secondary is just DBs. You need the average teams coming out now on a 4-2-5 type scheme, 3-3-5 or 4-2-5. You cannot have anything less than 5 defensive backs out there. You need a shade defender. You need a zone defender. You need an overhanging defender that's just going to drop to the seam and not let anybody get behind them. Well, who the hell is going to do that when you got a Stephon Diggs and a Nico Collins and a Joe Mixon that can come out the backfield and a Tank Dell? If you're sold on one safety or one DB, God bless you. Unless you have at least 3 solid corners that you can say, you know what, you're on an island. It's you and them and you. Don't ask for help. It's not coming. The Colts don't have that yet, and that's my only concern as far as depth late into the season by week 10.
It's the thing that's going to separate that division is the back end of the defense, and I think uptick to nickel defense uptick to like almost 40% of the time in the NFL. That they're running a 4-2-5.
Nickel and dime, safeties in the box.
Yeah.
They can play the run.
Yeah.
It's a different age.
It's just the defense is just shifting finally to what the new NFL is. It's just a lot of 3-4 receiver sets, or if depending on teams, 2 receiving tight end sets. So 3 and 2. So it's really becoming. Hate to say it. There's no more 2 smash mouth, in your face, 2 tight end sets. That just doesn't happen.
Exactly. We grew up seeing, like if you guys know personnel, we grew up seeing 22 personnel, 32 personnel, 3 running backs, 2 tight ends. two running backs, two tight ends, power I, fullbacks,
H-backs.
Jamal Lewis and Ruben Drones,
I
Brandon
will
Jacobs,
say
Sean
the
Alexander. We
last
grew
team,
up seeing the big backs.
the
Oh, yeah.
last team that really ran an effective two tight end set, albeit they were receiving tight ends but could block, was Bill Belichick.
Correct.
It is
That's
what it
true.
is. It's the
And
last one.
because look at yesterday, Baltimore has Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. Neither of them can block. You can't have them out there with Derrick Henry. They can't
The
block.
skill set is different. Yeah.
It's just different. Yes, they're great pass catchers. Both are threats. It's just they're a liability if you want flexibility in what you want to do. If you want flexibility for Lamar at the line, it's a different NFL.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my rant on that for the day. Let's go past that. Let's go into what I think could probably be the most entertaining game of the weekend. Lions-Rams. The battle of the formers. NFC playoff repeat. And it was a close game in the playoffs. And there's storylines upon storylines here. And good team against good team. I'm going to throw this to Julian first. Break this down.
A lot of Lions fans, I don't know why I know so many Lions fans, but, they like to talk to me about the DBs that they got in the offseason, from the draft and also from free agency. Carlton Davis was great for the Bucs for a couple years. They grabbed Carlton Davis, got Terrion Arnold. Also, another corner that they had grabbed in the second or third round. They really beefed it up. And I'm looking at it. I'm still nervous. Obi Melanfamu in the back. I'm still kind of nervous of their secondary. You're having rookies kind of taking over, and Carlton Davis, who I thought was pretty shaky for the Bucs for a year. So, on the other side, we got the Rams. Cooper Kupp. You got Puka Nacua who can block. He could just do everything as a receiver. Everything they ask for. You got him on jet sweeps. You got him coming out in H-back sometimes. It's insane that they've gotten so many late round receivers, and it seems like they got another one this year. I'm looking at the running backs. You got the ball and chain of Blake Corum and Kyron Williams. If Kyron Williams is really not just doing punts, which I don't believe. I think Kyron Williams, with the speed he has, with the elusiveness he has, is definitely going to be in there.
For the games he played was RB1.
Yeah, definitely. And Blake Corum, at Michigan, was a bell cow running back. I can't see Matt Stafford not succeeding this year. I can't see it. We're talking about Matt Stafford of old with the Lions that had no pieces. Yes, he had Calvin Johnson for a lot of years, but other than that, he was by himself. The offensive line was shaky. This is a good team. This is a good statement for the Rams to say, hey, you know what? Remember us a couple years ago? We're back. And I'm kind of excited for it. Aaron Donald or not, they got Jared Verse on defense. Yes, he was getting pushed around in training camp. No, we don't know if that's going to be the full season. Cameron Curl, they grabbed the safety from Washington. Cameron Curl was underrated. Definitely one of the top safeties in the league. I'm excited to see that team. I'm excited to see that defense and how they play against the Lions. I think the Rams are going to take care of business there.
I also like the pickups they had in the draft. You mentioned Jared Verse, Brandon Fisk, also both FSU dominators on the D-line, which is what they need to do. They lost Aaron Donald, who sucked up 2-3 offensive linemen just being there. So you need people that can beat one-on-one, maybe a double now, because it's going to spread out. You just got to adjust. They have solid linebackers, solid DBs. Offense can keep up with the best of them. It depends on health. It really do. It really does. The whole Rams season will come down to health, and that's just the nature of the beast. When you have great players, a little bit of injury concern. So I think if they stay healthy, they are right there, slotted at number 2 under San Francisco in that division, and will be sneaking in and making some playoff
maybe
teams
even winning that division.
It's a possibility. I'm going to hedge my bets on that one. But they're going to come in as a low seed, better than a low seed should be and make a higher seed on Dallas, his life sucked. And it's nature of the game, health and division. And I
I
think
think
they're
any
going to
any
make a
team's
very
going to make Dallas pay at any point in the season. So
and
who knows
I
about Dallas?
I I am also ready for a vintage Matt Stafford, 4,000 plus yards, 40 plus touchdowns. Like if Cooper Cup stays on the field, Puka's there. Demarcus Robinson coming out of camp, they're saying like he's also a great number 3 option now. And Kyron Williams, great out of the backfield catching. And add Blake Corum, that offense could be a problem. And Sean McVay, again, great head coach, start to top to bottom, very good organization, and they might very well be back, like Julian said. Julian, before I throw it to T, what's your score prediction for the game?
I definitely see, the Rams kind of struggling with the run, so I could see the Lions kind of chewing away some clock. I see it more of kind of like what we saw in the playoffs, 2028, maybe 30 points from the Rams, but I definitely see the Rams taking away 30-20. I'll say there.
30-20 Rams.
Yep.
Interesting. I was just praising all the Rams players and everything they do right. The Lions are a top 5 offense. You can't say
they
otherwise.
are.
Jared Goff is revitalized, he's going to have another 4,000 yard season in Detroit. Amon-Ra St. Brown's a certified psychopath. If you watch receivers, which is dog mentality, which is what you want in your number 1 receiver. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery is probably the best running back tandem in the league, with just no drop off between either of them. And their offensive line is probably top 10, top 5 in the league.
Top five, definitely. And
anchored by Penei Sewell. Their one weakness is their secondary, and if they can, I think they can outgun their problems until this secondary starts to mesh and get experience. So I personally think it's going to be another high-scoring game. I got 31-28 Detroit. T, what do you got?
Nice.
So, full disclaimer, I live in Detroit, born and raised. I am a Detroit kid. I was born here, raised here down on the east side of Detroit of a street called 7 Mile, not 8 Mile for all of the M&M lovers, but a mile south of that. So I'm from the east side of Detroit, born and raised in 7 Mile. I'm a Patriots fan. It's been that way since I was 5 years old when a guy named Willie McGinnis got drafted. He played linebacker. I saw him hit Barry Sanders so freaking hard it turned me into a fan. And that was that. Ever since then, I've been big on playing defense. I'm a defensive coordinator for the high school I teach at. I played linebacker in high school, so I love defense. I love linebackers. But being here in Detroit, I can tell you the hype has been around reassuring that front 7. They learned how to stack the box. Aaron Glenn, as a defensive coordinator in the second year, people aren't giving Brad Holmes, the GM, enough credit for retaining his head coach and both of his coordinators when there were 6 teams that reached out to Ben Johnson for a head coaching job, Atlanta and the Chargers being 2 of them. He turned them both down, which is how the Chargers ended up getting Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. So for you to bring back both of your coordinators and your head coach and your starting quarterback, that's a force to be reckoned with. Everybody's paid, so there's no offseason drama like with Jamar Chase or Brandon Ayuk or a Trent Williams, right, or a Chandler Jones of last year. There's nobody that feels they're disgruntled. There's nobody that's frustrated that they aren't getting paid. They paid Amon-Ra St. Brown, top 5 receiver. They paid Penei Sewell, one of the top, if not the top tackle in the league. They paid their defensive players, and everybody else is still on rookie deals. Aiden Hutchinson's still on this rookie deal. Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta. These are guys that are not expecting a payday for the next 3 to 4 years at their earliest. So everybody's paid, everybody's taken care of, and when you have a team that everybody is satisfied with their paychecks, you're gonna see some continuity. You're gonna see some camaraderie, unlike any other team. That's why the Lions are that workhorse. The Lions are that dark horse that people don't realize are going to make some noise because they've covered all fronts. And then they went out and got Aleem McNeil. They went and got a DJ Reader from the Cincinnati Bengals. They got Aiden Hutchinson some help because he was either getting held or he was getting double teamed. He was getting so much pressure that nobody else could get to the quarterback. Jack Campbell was doing a good job. Brian Branch was doing a good job at actually filling the gaps and understanding as a linebacker the importance of gap filling. Right, a lot of guys miss that. They miss how to fill the gaps. They miss how to do twists and stunts. And I feel that this Lions defense is great, just like we talked about with the Colts. The question is the secondary. These two rookies are up against Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua. Okay, these linebackers are going up against Tyler Higbee. These are three people with some experience, right? Even though Puka Nakua is in his second year, what we saw from him last year in this record-breaking year, my goodness, he is no joke. So this defense, these rookie DBs, and they didn't play much in the preseason. You have your first real test coming out the gate with what I feel, my humble opinion. You can stamp this now. My humble opinion is that we are looking at the NFC Championship this Sunday night. That it's going to be the Rams versus the Lions, what most people have considered the best and most even trade, right? Jared Goff for Matt Stafford. They both switched teams. And guess what? Jared Goff led the Rams to the Super Bowl, didn't win it. Matt Stafford led the Rams to the Super Bowl and won it. Jared Goff comes to Detroit, gets this team 2 playoff wins. I'm 32 years old. In my lifetime, the Lions had not won a playoff win. He brought 2 playoff wins to the city of Detroit. The last time that happened, I was a twinkle in my daddy's eye. So now you have all of this excitement building up downtown at Ford Field. And I think that it's going to bring forth a lot of excitement and enthusiasm. The line is set at 3.5. Whenever Vegas hangs 3.5, I feel like they know a bit too much. So kind of like how you had the Lions winning by 3, I also have them winning by 3. I have the Lions winning 23-20. I don't think they'll cover, but I think they handle business at home and win 23-20, and that we end up looking forward to seeing this at the end of January as the NFC Championship in the rematch.
Yeah, that very well could be the NFC Championship game. It's very, very, very in the realm of possibility. And nothing, barring injuries, would point any other way that these teams both don't make the playoffs. And probably 2 best head coaches, sans Kyle Shanahan, in the NFC is Dan Campbell and Sean McVay. From top to down, you pointed at it. Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell, keeping everyone that made that team go from it's just the Detroit Lions to Detroit probably might make the Super Bowl. They were 1 play away from making the Super Bowl last year. So why not? Why think they won't be there again? It's just they got better in every facet.
And here's my excitement for Stafford. To your point, I am a huge Stafford advocate because being here, I saw just flat out the hatred and the disdain that they had as if he was the lone problem. There's a statistic out there that people hate to bring up, but stats don't lie. I'm a stats guy. I'm a researcher by trade, but I love stats. There's a stat that said in Matt Stafford's 175 or 176 games as a starter for the Detroit Lions, 12 of those games, he had a running back rush for over 90 yards. Not 100 yards, just 90. Of those 12 games where the running back rushed, of those 12 games where the running back rushed for over 90 yards, he went 10-2. If you were to ever give this man a decent running back that can take the load off of him, that can make people believe the play action, that can make people believe the rollout, that can actually allow a Darrell Bevell or Ben Johnson right at the time, Joe Lombardi, Jim Bob Cooter. He went through 5 offensive coordinators. That's not for no good reason, right? They couldn't develop a good enough playbook or schemes because the running backs were just terrible. The run game was so god awful, and now he's somewhere where he has a Kyron Adams, he has a workhorse in Blake Corum, who's if nothing else going to be a great blocking back, a good third down back, and a good screen back, maybe 2 or 3 screen plays out the backfield just to open up the playbook so that overhanging defender has to now play one-on-one coverage, which takes him out the play. So now you have a St. Brown or a Jameson Williams or Sam Laporta deep down the middle of the field because the safety or the linebacker has their eyes in the backfield. So I am looking forward to seeing Stafford torch the defense. I do think he's going to have a 280 to 300 yard game, even though the stats or the touchdowns won't show for it. I think Stafford between the 20s, I think he's going to play lights out, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I to your point, I think that might be the most even trade in NFL history. It worked out phenomenal for both teams. Got the Rams what they wanted, and the Detroit Lions have drafted probably the best draft class in the last 5 years. with that trade. And
Yeah.
like you said, there's one person that needs to get paid on that entire team that's pivotal to them is Penei Sewell, and he's not due until next year before they even start looking
And
at
they
it.
already took care of him. They already took care of Sewell. They took care of Goff, and they took care of St. Brown. The trifecta's taken care of. No offseason issues like you heard with
And
the Niners
next
and the
next
Bengals.
person, next man up, Aiden Hutchinson, in his
Yep.
second year in the league. You
Yep.
got time. They're not strapped for cap. It's just one thing. Like cap is killing teams like New Orleans Saints and there's one other team I saw that's in cap. Oh, Cleveland Browns. Terrible cap situation there in Cleveland. And like, there's very few teams that have this level of talent and so much flexibility in their cap space that it's terrifying that if they don't win this year, how much they can load up for next year as well and still be
Absolutely.
perfectly okay. So it's going to be I would be surprised if this is not the best game of the week. I would be
Saints
absolutely
fans, by the way, will tell you cap space doesn't exist with Mickey Loomis because I mean they've gotten away with it for years and years and years on edge. So
yeah, they're
I would tell you the cap is
an
fake.
aging
How the hell do
roster,
the Saints?
but-
How do the Saints play every year? The Saints have been over for 3 years. How do they function?
Yeah, they're $85 million over last I checked. $85 million.
Like what?
It's insane.
But the Browns deferred another year of Deshaun's contract. They're going to be almost $100 million over next year, which I don't know how you get out of that one. And that is the worst. We're talking about one of the best trades. That is, in my opinion, the worst trade ever made in NFL history. Now we're just going to go to my personal favorite game of the week. That's going to cause me so much pain and suffering to watch. Monday Night Football, Jets, 49ers. I'm just going to tee this back up to Julian. Just
Is he bringing the flag out? Is he bringing the flag out?
It's thankfully it's in San Francisco. So,
Is he bringing the flag out there? I don't know, man. He loves his trips. This is a good trip to the West Coast. He could definitely bring the flag anyways.
I mean, yeah, visit Cal while you're out there, see what the college students have out for you.
I've thought about this game. I'm just looking at it. Is Aaron Rodgers the quarterback we know and love from 2 years ago? I mean, is he? It's kind of scary that I'm still looking at their offensive line. Besides Mekhi Becton, no Elijah Vera Tucker, who they drafted a couple years ago in the first round. Their offensive line still scares me. It still does. I know they have the weapons. Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Is Garrett Wilson going to take that step this year now that he has, a quarterback that can throw the ball? No offense to Zach Wilson. I think they need some time to gel with him. They didn't get that time last year. Yes, they got the reps in training camp. I really, really, really do think this team needs a few games with Aaron Rodgers. I think he could still be the quarterback, the improviser that we know and love that can throw a 40, 45-yard bomb on the run and drop it in a bucket. I just don't know if this is the week against a team that is hungry. They've been hungry for countless years. I mean, it's been like 10 years of being hungry, 15 years of being hungry for San Francisco. I don't think they can win this one. I think it's going to be a closer game than people realize. I think the Jets do have the defense to cover the players like Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, gadget player, and the cast that they have. I think this game will be a lower scoring game. I'm going with a 20-13 game. Yes, a 20-13 game. San Francisco wins the game outright. And we'll have to see for the next few weeks if Aaron Rodgers is still that guy.
Yeah, I love the low scoring prediction here. Both fantastic defenses and opposite of what I said about the Colts Texans defense is needing like a week or two to really get a game speed and mesh together with all the starters and everything and see opposing offenses that start full speed with starters. Opposites for the Jets and 49ers. I think it's just strength and weaknesses. Jets most easily top 5 defense last year. Could have been top 1 if they were off the field more. Just plain facts. 49ers, one of the best defensive lines, great secondary, and the best linebacker in football in Fred Warner. It's going to be slow and painful this entire game. And it's going to come down to who defensively blows a coverage more. And I'm going to have to say it's probably going to be the Jets. As much as I hate to say it, tight ends kill the Jets. They blow coverage on tight ends all the time for the last couple years. George Kittle's probably going to have a killer game, over 100 yards, probably catching 1, 2. So I want Aaron Rodgers to stay healthy, main concern, first thing on the list. Because he's playing Malcolm Floyd again, week 1, who knows. He's not at MetLife turf, which is a huge bonus, though. It's going to be a sweaty game for any Jets fan sitting on the couch watching and just praying he makes it through an entire game. Not that we win. Not even that we win. Not even that we make it close. That he just walks off the field at the end of the game. And if he can do that for 17 games, it might be a pretty good season for the Jets because I think Garrett Wilson is that guy. Had 1,000-yard, back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving years with Zach Wilson. That doesn't say anything. I don't know what will. Breece Hall could be a top 3 running back this year. What almost had 1,000 yards rushing with a terrible offensive line and just everyone stacking the box because he was the offense. Also had over 400 yards receiving. Throw that with someone who has great play action, can move the pocket, can make people not stack the box. Breece is primed to have a great season. Everything after that is where the Jets fall off. Offensive line, still, even with Tyron Smith, even with John Simpson, even with ABT, even with Joe Tittman now firmly at center, and even with Morgan Moses on the other side. Injury across the board. All of them. And they're protecting a 40-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles tear. It's just.
Do you worry about the wide receiver depth as well? Because I feel like, besides Garrett Wilson, we saw last year.
The drop-off between 1 and 2 is massive for the Jets. If Mike Williams stays healthy, again, it's Jets' big thing. If they stay healthy, they'll be a great team. If they don't, they might win 2 games. There's no gray area with the Jets. It's either they're going to be in the playoffs for the first time in 14 years, or they're going to have a top 5 draft pick. There's no in between. It's Mike Williams, great receiver. Could be a great second option. Can't stay on the field. Allen Lazard, flat out sucks. And Malachi Corley, going to be great. But it's his first season. You can't count on that. You just can't.
I think Allen Lazard took on a role that was a little too big for him, especially coming from Green Bay, being that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 at most. And besides that, you look at also the Jets' track record of these guards that they have. I mean, again, Elijah Vera Tucker was that first-round pick that I thought would hit for them, and he's just been off the field more than he's been on the field.
But, dude, sucks to say. He said 2 back-to-back season enders. But when he's on the field, he's grading at top 15 guard, which is terrible. Which is terrible as in he's playing great, but he can't stay on the field, so you don't want to get rid of him. But what are you going to justify for him now? Like, this is big make-or-break time now. It's... Again, I would say it's going to be painful to me for watching a lot of Jets fans. I'm going to say 24-17 might not even be that close. 49ers. T. I know I just went on a whole pain Jet fan rant. What as an observer, what do you got going on for 49ers Jets Monday Night Football? You also muted.
I've been waiting to find out who your team was. I'm elated to know that it's the Jets. That's awesome. So,
Oh,
um,
yeah, love that for the last 28 years of my existence. Love that.
got you. Yeah, no, I'm actually taking the Jets to win this one outright. I can't overlook that the Jets somehow last year rallied together and won the season opener without Aaron Rodgers. Like that type of rallying together is exactly what a 40-year-old quarterback needs. And again, you take out the Philadelphia Eagles without Aaron Rodgers, I can't just there are just certain things I can't overlook. I can't
I mean,
overlook you taking
to
out
be
what
fair,
was at the time.
they should have beat the Chiefs too last year. They should have beat the Chiefs last year.
They should have absolutely. So I don't think that there's that big of a fall off between wide receiver one and wide receiver two. Sorry if you see my baby girl. I don't see that big of a fall off, not in productivity, but in distraction. Keep in mind, Mike Williams' biggest job with the Chargers was to be a distraction. Why else did Keenan Allen have 1,500-yard seasons, plural? Because you have a big body, 6'4", 230-pound receiver that somebody has to keep account of. At some point, you have to know where he's at all times. And if we know anything about Aaron Rodgers, is his ability to look off defenders, his ability to follow one guy for a good 2.5 seconds, and at the very last minute, glance the other way, look that safety off completely, give a quick little shoulder nudge, and with the flick of the wrist, he can drop the ball right where it needs to be. Aaron Rodgers, Justin Herbert, there's one other person I saw the stat on Sports Science that said these guys can throw the ball 40 yards with an apex of 8 to 9 feet, which means the highest point the ball reaches is 8 to 9 feet. You're throwing a freaking dart 40 yards down the field. I'm excited to see the possibility of Aaron Rodgers being the Aaron Rodgers that we all know and love. I have him as the front runner for comeback player of the year because of the weapons that he has. I love a Brees Hall. I love a Garrett Wilson. I love even an Alan Lazard. We all know that was just because the receiver wanted to be back with his quarterback, right? I like the idea of Mike Williams, to your point, if he stays healthy. And I can't overlook Braylon Allen. Look at Wisconsin running backs their first 3 years in the season. Look at what Monte Ball did his first 3 years with Denver. Look at what Melvin Gordon did his first 3 years with the Chargers. Look at what Jonathan Taylor did. Granted, he was unhealthy for about a year of it, but look at the damage that they do when they bring in Wisconsin running backs. So I'm not overlooking if Brees Hall has to come out for a play or two, that there's some big drop off there either. I'm excited to see a big power back. Braylon is one of the biggest players on that offense outside of the offensive lineman, of course, and that defense. I'm looking forward to seeing who is Sauce Gardner going to cover. That's the only thing I am looking forward to on my personal podcast. That's all I'm going to break down. I'm going to break down who is Sauce Gardner cover. Is he going to follow Debo Samuel across the field? Is he going to follow AU?
I
Remember in the Super Bowl when the Seattle Seahawks had Sherman covering Gronk because Gronk was out wide? Are you going to put him on George Kittle because he's a threat? I'm excited to see this Jets defense, and I have the Jets winning outright. I think that the Niners will fall victim to you had too many guys wanting money and not getting it. So you missed all offseason, you missed OTAs, you missed training camp, and you missed, preseason practice. I can't overlook that. I think that they're gonna have some growing pains because they weren't able to implement more things. Brock Purdy's gonna have a hard time getting used to this cadence of the Jets defense, and I got the Jets winning this one.
I and didn't harp on the Jets defense enough how great they were, and C.J. Mosley leading it,
Yeah.
and Quincy Williams being an absolute ball hawk,
A
like
disruptor.
all over the field, can cover tight ends fantastically.
Hmm.
And that's a huge thing in the league to have a linebacker that's fast enough to keep up with speedy running backs coming out the backfield or just these big, fast receiving tight ends, George Kittle. So I think that's going to be a very intriguing matchup. I would be very surprised if Robert Saleh switches from the halves of just keeping Sauce on the right and DJ Reed on the left because of how well they both have played the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't see him switching to the old Darrell Revis, Antonio Cromartie. Just Revis tails whoever he wants, lock it down, just wherever you want to go, you got it, and have DJ Reed go to the other side. I think he's confident enough in DJ Reed to cover Brandon Ayuk. I think he's confident enough. DJ Reed's big enough to cover Deebo Samuel. What I don't think is that Sauce Gardner is big enough to cover a George Kittle, an Isaiah Likely, a Mark Andrews. I just don't think so. He's most certainly has enough wingspan to do it. By all means, he's got one of the longest wingspans for a DB. He just doesn't have the sheer size, which is my only problem because he can get boxed out and have to rely on his long arms to try and disrupt the play, which these tight ends are very, very good at getting to that ball and making sure you just can't. So it's going to be very interesting. First Monday Night Football. Praying for no injuries and just praying for.
I do think though that could be an Achilles heel if Sauce doesn't adapt and learn how to cover bigger bodies. For the main reason that I can see a Niners team, or just keeping it in the division, right? I can see a Miami Dolphins team coming out in bunch coverage. I can see an OBJ, Jalen Waddle, and a Tyreek Hill all bunched up on the same side. And it's like, who's going to cover who? Typically, the middle guys cancel each other out. When I teach you, the middle guys cancel each other out. Whoever breaks outside first, that's who the DB gets. Whoever breaks inside first, that's who that nickel or that overhanging defender gets. But when you have a big body, it's going to be a good chance that, like what the Chiefs like to do, Andy Reid loves to press and release. Travis Kelce just sits there for about a second or a second and a half. Then he just releases and he's open in the middle of the field with no accountability. Or he swings out wide and he's either out for a quick out, or he can turn that out into a fade. So he does an out and around. And then it's that DB's job to make sure he covers up that field. So if, to your point, if it is you're a shade defender, right? Kind of like the Richard Sherman, the Legion of Boom, Earl Thomas, you don't follow anybody. You stay on your side and you dominate that side, period, point blank. You do the curl to flat, the hook to curl, you drop to the seam. If that's what we're going to see from Sauce, I'm hoping that it's enough to actually keep and contain a CMC and a George Kittle, because if not, I wouldn't be surprised if Shanahan starts to develop plays to kind of pick on that inability to assess and to actually cover more.
I do think, luckily, the Jets do have the luxury of, again, Quincy Williams, who I think matches up as best as anyone can against Christian McCaffrey. In linebacker coverage, I think that's the best you're going to get in the league, honestly. Defensive line, it's huge strength for the Jets. Going to be wreaking gotta put pressure on Brock Purdy. You have to. You got to be number one. Got to get the CMC in the backfield before he gets going and before he gets to the open field. Number two. The hardest part for the Jets is no matter how well they match up against Ayuk, against Deebo, because they do. They match up very well. It's going to be how long they are on that field is really going to be a detriment to how well they do. Because Kyle Shanahan could run the ball and pick up first downs and run 8 minutes off the clock.
Right.
He's a very smart coach, knows what he's got to do. And if you were on the Jets defense, that's where the breakdowns start to happen. Tight end coverage, how you can have Christian McCaffrey run for 35 yards on one play. It's just one of these things that you, as a Jet fan, you kind of watch and you see the offense is 3 and out. Field goal, 3 and out. And it's just putting so much pressure on defense. If they can avoid that, it's going to be a very, very close game. It's going to be a fun watch. Before we head out, T, you got any other games from this weekend that you think was worth a follow?
Absolutely. Cleveland and Dallas. I wish Julian was still here so I could pick
my game of the week.
I wish he was still here so I could pick a little fun at him, because we live.
Patriots fan, don't let him fool you with that Manziel jersey.
Okay, cool. Just had to be sure. I'm very. We live in a day and age where Cleveland is actually favored to win a game. That says a lot to me, at least. I am not even seeing it being that close. They have the line at 2.5. That's just modest. That's just calling it for you better off just taking the money line. I pushed the line personally back to 5.5. I have them winning by a touchdown. I'm looking forward to that game because I think Deshaun Watson just snaps out of it. That's it. I think he snaps out of it. To your point of this being the worst trade in NFL history, which it still was, you gave away 5 picks for him. I still think this will go down in history as the worst trade. Period. Point blank. But Dallas not adding anything, at least anything of benefit and of true intrinsic value to their team, that concerns me. I don't think that Cleveland is going to struggle getting the ball upfield. I don't think that Amari Cooper and Jerry Judy are going to have a problem creating space, not even against the Jordan Lewis and the Trayvon Boy or Trayvon. I almost said Trayvon Boy.
Trevon Diggs.
Javon Diggs. Yeah, he's not going to have an issue creating space against them. David Njoku is one of the best tight ends in the league, and you have a healthy Nick Chubb who's coming back. I think that this offense
No, I
with
mean
a Deshaun Watson,
Nick Chubb's not coming back till at least week 5.
he's still on the pub list. Okay,
He got
thanks for that. I didn't see that.
designated, so he has to wait. He has to wait at least 4 weeks.
Okay, be that as it may,
Jerome Ford
I
still a
don't
great
see
option
any.
last year. Jerome Ford.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything that convinces me that Dallas can actually step up and make things happen. Their only offensive weapon is CD, which means if CD doesn't get going, that offense doesn't get going. You brought back Zeke, whose last memory as a Cowboy was snapping the ball as a center and getting pummeled. And you have a Dalvin Cook, who the two of them combined, I think last year had around 15, 1,600 yards, which isn't saying much. So it sounds good on paper, if that. So it sounds good on paper, but I'm still interested in seeing how they are going to step up to the noise, how CeeDee Lamb is going to step up to, like I mentioned earlier, when players miss a huge chunk of time, coming back and trying to adjust on the fly doesn't always work in your favor. You have a Dak Prescott. Are you going to pay him or is he going to walk at the end of the year? You have a Mike McCarthy last year of his contract. Is he going to stay or are you going to toss him and bring Bill Belichick or somebody else? There are so many questions with Dallas, but with Cleveland having one of the top 2 or even top 3 defenses in the league, that's the game I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing this defense literally pummel Dak. I'm looking forward to seeing that offensive line getting pushed back. And I think that it's still going to be a good game, but that's the game I need everybody to watch out for. Look for Deshaun Watson. Is he back or is he still tripping?
Yeah, that is. I don't have another game. I didn't have one plan B in the chamber to go for there, but
I got one before you. Don't worry.
I'm just gonna go with it. The biggest question mark for the Browns is Deshaun Watson. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it, and there's no reason why you should fail. You have a top 5 offensive line. You have Amari Cooper, who's still super productive, still a bona fide wide receiver 1. You have Jerry Judy, who could very well be a 1B, but just didn't get the fair shake in Denver. Just didn't perform to what they thought he was going to be. But as a secondary receiver, man, world's your oyster at that point for Deshaun. Because David Njoku, one of the best receiving tight ends, huge body, worked on his catching issues too. Had a great year last year. Have the best. You could put anyone behind that offensive line, they get a rush for 80 plus yards. And when you get Nick Chubb back, you have a top 5 running back. Man squatting 600 pounds, a couple months off knee surgery. Like, there's nothing that tells me Nick Chubb's not going to come back and be Nick Chubb. Their defense, number 1 defense in the league last year through the first 12 weeks. There's nothing new there. They didn't lose anyone. They have one of the best, if not the best, secondary in the league. And followed by their one weakness being the linebacking core, but still not bottom 10 in that.
Right.
There's no weaknesses that you can really exploit. Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett. You're gonna have to commit 2 to possibly 3 people to him at all times. Dallas's O-line is getting old. Zach Martin's really the anchor there, but only so much Zach Martin can really do by himself on that line.
Right.
And there's just going to be too much coming at Dak. He's going to have to rely on CD to be a safety valve. And As I said, the secondary for Cleveland's no slouch. It's going to be tight coverage. It's going to be a fight for the ball every single time. And they're not going to have a running game. So Dak's going to have to do it throwing 50 times a game in Cleveland. And it's just not going to pan out. I don't think it's close either. I think it's going to be an absolute blowout. And Jerry Jones is going to be sitting there like, well, I don't know where we went wrong. You didn't add anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's going to hurt Dallas, I think, the most is DeRon Bland not being there as your slot corner.
Absolutely.
And good luck covering Elijah Moore, because Elijah Moore is a great slot receiver. Said it when he was on the Jets. Great slot receiver. And corner depth, not really Dallas' strong suit. We saw it last year.
Right.
So I don't think it's close. I got Cleveland 28-10.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't disagree at all with nothing. Everything you said is it's spot on. I will just add, just for the sake of a 1B, my 1B would be the Titans. The Titans game, because the Titans are plus 4.5 against the Chicago Bears. They sold a stat that says since 2002, rookie quarterbacks drafted 1 overall are 0-14-1. And for some reason, they're giving Chicago the benefit of the doubt because he's the lone rookie quarterback that's favored in week 1. Jaden Daniels is not favored against Tampa. They're expecting Tampa to obliterate the Washington Commanders. So that's another game I'm on the lookout for. Will Levis, you might as well call him a rookie quarterback. You don't know what he's capable of as of yet. You got Malik a couple years back, and you traded him away for nickels on the dime. So you're still in the QB fiasco yourself. Yes, you have the pieces. Yes, you have the weapons. Yes, you have the surefire defense. But how are you going to shape out against a rookie quarterback, a newly traded running back in DeAndre Swift, and a receiver core that is DJ Moore, Rome Dunze, and Keenan Allen? I think that they're going to have their work cut out for them. And I'm just excited to see this Titans defense against the Chicago Bears offense.
I would have liked to see Justin Fields with a supporting cast, just
Same.
for me. But
they drafted a younger Justin Fields.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother rant of how Justin Fields got.
It is.
But yeah, absolutely hoed in Chicago, and
yeah,
I hope he starts by week 4 in Pittsburgh. I really do.
I'm with you.
That receiver room's disgusting. You're gonna have options for days. Cole Kmet's a great tight end. The offensive line is a million times better than it was 2 years ago. DeAndre Swift and Khalil Herbert, they're gonna do everything you want them to do. Khalil Herbert's great in between tackles. DeAndre Swift's great outside and a great receiving back. Everything you want on an offense is right there. If Caleb Williams is a tenth of what they think he's going to be, I think they steamroll Tennessee by at least a touchdown. Because I don't know what Tennessee was doing, letting I can't think of the head coach's name, Mike Vrabel. Letting him go, which is absurd to me, and that he didn't find a job anywhere because he brought that team to playoffs every single year, besides the last year when they had Derrick Henry. And that was it. And Will Levis had some good starts, but it was just nowhere near what they needed to be a good team. And the defense is terrible. And the receiving core last year was terrible. Well, now you have a iffy D-Hop, if he's hurt or not, and Calvin Ridley. Traylon Burks still sucks. Guess what? Your offensive line still sucks. Your running backs kind of suck. So it's setting up really Chicago to have a great first game. But you never know what you're getting with a rookie quarterback. So it's going to be a crapshoot, but I would take smash -4.5 for Chicago. Just me.
That's for sure just you, because I took the Titans +4.5. I don't have faith in any rookie quarterbacks ever. Not ever. Not once. Not the first game. If this were week 2 or week 3, possibly.
I also think Jaden Daniels balls out week 1.
Yeah, I do too. But like I said,
I don't think they win,
he wasn't given that benefit. He's not favored to win. Just Caleb.
All right. Any safe rounds, alibis, last thoughts for this week before we get out of here and put week 1 in the books?
Football season is back. I am looking forward to seeing receivers go crazy. I am tired of the MVP just being the glorified quarterback of the year. I think this is a year where a receiver wins the MVP. If the Minnesota Vikings prove anything with Sam Darnold, I think Justin Jefferson can be a front runner for it, being that in his last 9 games, he still had over 1,000 yards and I think 8 touchdowns. And this is when Kirk Cousins was out for the season. So if Sam Darnold can be just an inkling of that, I think that Justin Jefferson is a front runner. But we have others. I'm just looking forward to seeing receivers make noise. That's my last word. I want a receiver to win, to MVP. Why are quarterbacks winning it as if they're not throwing it to anybody? Same with the Heisman. You got to throw to somebody.
It's a quarterback award. Just call it what it is, NFL. If you don't
Right.
want people but quarterbacks winning, just call it quarterback award. Because no
Exactly.
offense, no shade to Lamar. It should have been CMC last year, and I will stand on
It
that.
should have been. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm with you.
Like, you could say, oh, he has a great team. That man, you take him off that team, it's not the same team. Like,
Correct.
look at everything. But that I can go on that rant for days. Jefferson probably could have won it 2 years ago. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, my non-quarterback front runner for who I think would be a MVP candidate. Surprisingly, not going to be Tyreek Hill here. It's going to be Breece Hall. I'm going to say
I'm listening.
I think Breece, if the offensive line is what we think it is, and then Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, he could have a almost damn near 15-5 season, 1,500 rushing yards and 500 receiving yards, and probably 7 rushing touchdowns and 3 receiving touchdowns. And that's what more do you want from a running back? 2,000 all-purpose yards, 10 touchdowns, and that's what I think is the floor if all those things happen. So you could potentially be looking at MVP season right there at that floor, because I don't think CMC goes crazy like that this year.
So if you haven't noticed, I'm an over/under junkie. I've hit the last 3 that I played. So you're saying if there was an over/under set at 1950 all-purpose yards for Brees, I should hammer it over.
I would take the over. I think
I like
I
it.
think just from what he came off the knee surgery and how bad that offensive was last year, and still had crazy numbers, finished as the RB2 in fantasy and scored 3 touchdowns. That says a lot. And
A lot. Yeah.
if the offense can be what we think it is, sky's the limit of how good Brees Hall can be. And Braylon Allen, I think, will relieve a lot of stress off Brees, because Braylon Allen is massive, young, and will run through people in between the tackles, which wears on teams, makes you not want to tackle. And Brees is elusive, and it's going to be a very, very good one, too. And I think that's all we have for this week. Thanks for being here with me, T. Thanks for everyone viewing at home on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and Twitter. Well, X, fully on Twitter. Yeah. Whatever that one is. And thanks for joining us. Peace. Hope you all enjoy week 1. NFL is back, baby.